we didn't really explain like all the things you should be aware of when you're lifting a patient. So we're going to show you slowly how to do it. First of all, you're always lifting with the legs. That means you bend at the knees. Okay? You squat down like this. Oh, yeah, put that down. Gets a little tight there. I'm old. Alright, so your hand should be as close to the weight as possible. Okay. Now there's no one on the stretcher, so the backboard, so it's actually fairly light. But you want to keep your elbows locked. Okay, you're not lifting with your elbows like that. Okay, you're just gonna hurt yourself. Also, back needs to be straight. If your back bends, you're gonna hurt it, okay? And back injuries don't go away; they stay with you for life, okay? So, so when you lift, you always, and lastly, communicate with your partner, okay? Have one person count off. So in this case, 1, 2, 3.
I'm at the head.
Yeah, okay, fine. You count that.
1, 2, 3.
All right. Oh, so heavy. All right, and then when you set down, again, bend at the knees, not at the back, okay?
And palms.
Make sure you've also got a firm grip on whatever you're lifting, and you're trying to keep it as close to you as possible to help you stabilize the weight much better. So, do you guys want to demonstrate all the lifts and moves?
Yeah.
Cool.
Richard.
It talks about a blanket move and it talks about a drag. Cool. So the first kind of category of moves we're going to talk about and demonstrate are called emergency moves. These are moves that essentially you're going to want to do in an emergency. These aren't necessarily the most practical for pulling a patient a long ways. These aren't necessarily the most practical for keeping a patient stabilized in terms of maintaining C-spine stabilization, maintaining other injury stabilization. Essentially, these are supposed to be used in emergencies. The patient has to be moved now. The patient has to get out of wherever they are.
There's a fire.
If there's a fire. If there's a car accident, your sheet talks about removing a patient from a vehicle quickly. So when you're doing these emergency moves, essentially the idea is to try to pull the patient in a way that you're going to compromise C-spine the least, if that makes sense. So I believe you'll see what we're talking about when they demonstrate. But you want to pull your patient along the long axis of the body to try to protect the spine as much as you can. So if a patient is on the floor or ground, you can move the patient. Actually, you're going to need a blanket as well.
Oh, you're going to do the blanket one first?
You can move the patient by putting them on a blanket and dragging. This is kind of decent. This is kind of decent for C-spine if you're moving the entire. You're kind of isolated from. You want to do it? You want to set it up, okay? And you're not necessarily pulling on the body itself. You're moving the entire patient. So the way Mitch would do this is he would.
You have a little like roll, and then you slide it under.
Right.
You roll them the other way. Or no, that's fine. It'll work.
And then you can drag the blanket.
Oh, you're really heavy.
And you're moving, and that's a way of dragging. That's
Oh, my C-spine.
And don't drop the patient.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What just happened?
Are we going to be tested on these lifts? Like, are you going to ask us to do them? Because, like, I'm concerned that I would not be able to lift a patient, like, on the backboard like that.
Are we going to test you? No.
I mean, like, obviously we should be able to do them.
But it's good to know them anyways. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a good way to move your patients to laying on the full floor or ground. And that more or less is decent for protecting C-spine. Alternatively, the first responder can grab underneath the patient's armpits from the back, or grasp their forearms, and there you go, and drag like that as well.
These are really important things to learn when he doesn't want to come up the stairs with the shoulder.
There you go.
Grasp.
Really awkward.
I can't do that. On the ground.
On the ground now.
Okay, so Solomon is going underneath the armpits and grasping the forearms of the patient. See, underneath the armpits, and you can drag just like that.
That's taking a lot of force. So again, like Ben said, it's not really suited for taking patients really long distances.
When you're doing that, you want to be careful that you don't pull the head or neck away from the shoulders. So I guess the idea with that is you're moving the entire upper section of the body at the same time, sort of, again, an attempt to protect the spine as much as possible. Alternatively, a modification of that is you can grab the patient's ankles and drag it backwards. We don't really need to demonstrate that. So a couple other types of carries, or a couple other types of ways of moving a patient. If you have a patient that's sort of ambulatory, if you got a patient that's got like maybe a tib fib injury, or you got a patient who is very drunk and can't walk straight. Something along those lines, you can do a walking assist. Basically, you put your arm across their shoulder and support them. There you go, and you kind of act like a crutch, if you will, for the patient, and that helps them move. Another one, there's a couple carries as well that you can do to carry a patient. If this is probably a slightly less emergent situation, when you have time to get a patient in a position to carry them, this would be again a non-ambulatory patient. There's the firefighter's carry. You're gonna basically, which one of you is the patient? Which one of you is the firefighter for this? Okay. So the way this works, you put the patient across your shoulders and carry them.
Oh my god.
Wait, maybe I should. I'm scared.
There you go.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Holy shit.
Oh my god. I'm not gonna try. I can do that. That's your nose.
Yeah, so basically you're going to grab underneath your patient's, arm, underneath the patient's leg, and put them across your shoulders, carry them. Again, when you're doing this, lift from the legs, and like it's very difficult, this is again another time to not convince yourself you're Superman trying to lift that 400-pound patient with the firefighter's carry, because you're not getting up after that, ever.
This is, again, a very tiring kind of move. You can probably walk maybe 100 meters, and then you're going to need a rest. Also, easier for unconscious patients, because conscious patients are going to struggle. That makes your job harder.
Another carry is the pack strap carry, the backpack carry. This is for a conscious patient, and essentially this is for a patient who's shorter than you. You have your patient cross their arms in front of you, just like they're doing, grasp their wrist, and lean forward. And see how Mitch is leaning forward, he's lifted Solomon off the ground. The patient has to be shorter than you, but that's not really effective. But that's a good one for a responsive, well-oriented patient. Also, this is a neat one too. You can actually, with two people, you can kind of make a seat for a patient to sit on. Are you good? Okay. So you can basically lock your arms with another responder, just like.
Okay,
Oh, that
Yeah,
one.
just like
I thought
that.
we were doing the cross.
No.
Yeah, there are two ways to do this.
Yeah. So this way you've kind of got a seat and a backrest, if you will.
Sorry, my bad.
And you can just lift up your patient just like that. Again, make sure you communicate well with your partner so you go both in the same direction, and you keep your patient. You know if your partner's getting tired, so you can set your patient down. Do you guys want to show them the other way to do that, Carrie? Or okay, there's another way to link your hands.
You grab your own arm for this one.
You kind of essentially
You grab one arm and then it's like this.
you make it a square.
Oh, yeah. And then you like, yeah, remember? Like,
There you go.
Yeah.
So if you grab your own arm just like this, and your partner does the same thing, you can kind of make a seat, if you will. That there's no backrest this time, but it's a little bit of a sturdier seat. For
Also,
your patient to
have
sit
your
on.
patient hold on, because
I can't, it's recording.
have your patient hold on, because it's just sturdier that way. Go ahead, you can drop me now.
Cool. Does anybody have any questions about those? Does anybody have any questions about those carrying techniques? I know it looks like a lot real fast, but anybody have any questions about those?
I have a question. When should a first responder move a victim of an illness or injury who is not in immediate danger?
Question. You guys answer.
Question. Yeah, that's a question for you guys to answer. So when should you move a patient who is not in immediate danger themselves? Right, that's what you asked. Okay.
If you need to move them to get access to someone else who is in immediate danger?
Good. What else? One other situation.
If like,
They need
it's like if you said you just.
Did dangerous
like,
honey?
if like ALS can't get to them, like if they're in a place that's difficult for anyone to get to them.
Okay.
That only works.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What
They're
if,
not ceasefire.
let's say, you have an old guy on a bed, and he doesn't have a pulse. What do you need to do?
CPR.
CPR, but you can't do it on the bed.
There you go.
So right. So if you can't treat the patient where they are currently, you want to move them. So
Michael Jackson.
So, a first responder should move a victim of an illness who is not in immediate danger only after the victim has been assessed and properly cared for. Only after the victim has been assessed and properly cared for. Which of the which of the following should you consider when you decide to move a victim? Your own physical limitations,
he's reading off the
He's reading
tab.
up the test.
the location of the nearest hospital,
These are really good to remember.
What was the first one?
doing the best job possible, or selecting the appropriate method for the size of the victim.
Wait, what? What?
I'll just tell you. You should consider your
You got
own
that?
physical limitations when you, whether you feel capable of moving a person before you move the person. All right. Name one condition that requires you to perform an
I got
emergency
it.
move.
Just read off the choices.
This is not a test.
You just said it.
I said
One condition where you have to do an emergency move.
ABCD is compromised. I mean, ABCD.
Seems
Because
not
like with the
fair.
emergency role.
When a person must be moved in order to reach other victims.
No.
That's another one.
That's one reason. That's out of the choices that were available
That's
to
a
him.
reason you should remember that.
This is gonna be on the test, guys.